everybody, and welcome to this lesson on the single stroke 4. Now, if you are new to practice drumming, I want to quickly go over our format since it's a little unique. First and foremost, we are called practice drumming for a reason, and that's because we believe true progress comes from practicing. You've got to do the motions to get it into your system. So knowing that, these lesson videos that you are watching now are meant to be as quick as possible and generally optional. I'm going to be reviewing things like rhythmic structure, sticking, technique, things like that. But if you're really short on time and you just need to get straight to playing, that's totally fine. So with that in mind, after each lesson video, there are going to be practice videos, which are intended for you to play along with. Now, I can't emphasize that last point enough. You need to play with the practice videos. That's the whole point of this, is to give you the repetitions that you need to make measurable progress. Think about these practice videos almost like a workout class. It's sometimes hard to motivate yourself to rep an exercise a bunch of times, especially if it's something that's very technical. But honestly, those technical pieces make all your creative pieces even better. So we are trying to make that a little easier by doing it with you. So for these practice videos, throw on your headphones, sit down at the drum kit or the practice pad and play along. Each practice video is going to have 3 different speeds, which might vary just depending on what the exercise is. And I would advise that you do not skip the slower speeds, even if you can play faster. The reason being is that at slower speeds, you're able to focus a little more on control and technique. So there's a lot of value in practicing at slower speeds and being very conscious with what you're doing. So to sum all this up, lesson videos are optional, but will give you a deeper dive into the material if you have time for them. Practice videos are meant for you to play along with them to get the reps you need and are recorded at 3 different speeds. All right, with all that in mind, let's get into this lesson. All right, the single stroke 4. So in this lesson, we are going to break this up into 3 different pieces. First, we're going to talk about rhythmic structure. How is the single stroke 4 formed? The sticking that you need to use for it, and just some overall technique. So before we get into any of this, I always think it's really nice to just get this into your ear. So I'm going to play some of these practice videos so you can hear what it sounds like. And I'm going to kind of toggle on and off the backing track so that you can hear what it sounds like in context with some music and also what it sounds like just by itself, the single stroke 4. Here we go. At 100 BPM. All right, let's hear it a little faster at 120. Here we go. And one final one here at 140. So first off, looking at this, it is very simple rhythmically. We really just have 4 alternating notes. First, starting with your right hand, right, left, then starting with your left hand, left, right. Also notice there is no accent. So as I play this, I'm playing everything what I would call neutral, meaning I'm trying to create the strokes between both of my hands to be relatively the same height. Okay, so knowing that, let's talk about the counting of this. It's a grouping of 1 triplet right here, and then a quarter note. So this triplet takes up one beat, this quarter note takes up a second beat. So if you wanted to count this, an easy way to count this would be to say 1 triplet 2, 3 triplet 4. It's really that simple. So a grouping that's a triplet and then a quarter note. All right, sticking. Let's talk sticking. We already spoke about this a little bit, but again, we are just alternating right, left, right here, and then left, right. But knowing that, part of the trick here is being able to switch between them. So we actually have 2 sets of exercises here for you. One, where you're going to do 4 repetitions per side. So doing the right side 4 times and then doing the left side 4 times. Let's check that out real quick. We'll hear just the snare drum. Switch. Switch. So see how we're doing 4 on the right and then 4 on the left. Nothing crazy, right? Then we also have these same exercises for you where we are going to just switch back and forth 1 time on each side. So 1 time on the right side, then 1 time on the left side. It will sound exactly the same. You're just switching each time. And actually, it really should sound the same, right? Because the rhythm has not changed, just the sticking has changed. Let's take a listen to this. Okay, so the intention here is 1, for you to get the rhythmic structure, and 2, to get comfortable switching sides. So to start, I would advise that you start by doing the 4 times per side and then moving to the 1 time per side. Again, even if you're already able to do 1 time per side right off the bat, there is a lot of value in doing the 4 times per side so that you can really hone in on that technique. All right, good transition to talk about technique a little bit. If you watch how I'm playing this here, you'll notice that I'm using very full rebounded strokes, meaning I am not dead stopping the stroke at the snare drum. So when I'm done with the stroke, as you can see with my wrist here, I'm bringing it all the way back and then all the way back down. So I'm going to play this back one more time. I'll go to 120 so you can kind of get the flow for it. We'll actually listen with the backing track on this one. I really, though, want you to focus on the wrist motion. I want you to really watch my hands here so you can see how full these strokes are. Take a listen. All right, just a couple of other notes about technique. Now, I am playing at a very full dynamic here because I want you to see the full motion. I would advise that you would also practice at multiple dynamics. Play at more of a medium volume and then a soft volume where you're maybe only a few inches off the snare drum. Finally, I am using German grip here, meaning that my palms are totally flat and facing the floor. Now, could you use French grip? Absolutely. Experiment with both of them. Finally, make sure that you're sitting up straight. And that's it. That's the full lesson to get you into the single stroke 4. Now, remember, practice videos are the key to this. Play along with them. Part of the reason that we've even put backing tracks to this is to make them more interesting and fun to play along with. So start there. And then if you want, you can move on to putting on other music that you like and playing along with it. But the point of all of this is to get you playing. So you are going to have practice videos at 100, 120, and 140 BPM for both 4 times per side and 1 time per side. Good luck. Happy practicing. Okay, lesson 2. This is going to be a quick one because really all we're going to do in this lesson is just add a kick note on the pulse. So every quarter note, right? So on 1, on 2, on 3, and on 4. I always like to listen first. Let's just listen through all 3 speeds before I say anything else. Here's 80. Pretty simple, huh? Here's 100. Finally, 120. Okay, we're going to break this lesson up into 2 pieces, just rhythmic structure and technique, because the sticking has not changed at all. Now, in terms of the rhythmic structure, all we're doing is adding a kick note to kind of bookend this single stroke 4. So at the very first note with this right hand, we're adding a kick, and the very last note with this left hand, we're adding a kick, and vice versa. For this very first left hand, we're adding a kick, and this very last right hand, we're adding a kick. That is really all it is. We're just creating a quarter note pulse. And the reason I think this exercise is important is because it helps bridge and transition you, particularly if you're a beginning drummer, from what is just a practice pad exercise or a snare exercise into something that has a very small amount of independence to get you onto the drum set and make this more of a basic drum set exercise. So knowing that, let's talk technique. First off, we are going to have 4 unison notes here, right? Every quarter note, we have a unison kick and snare note. So it is incredibly important that these do not flam, meaning I don't want one to be just before or just after the other note. I want the kick and snare notes to be exactly on top of each other. So if you're feeling comfortable with this previous exercise, the 4 times through and the 1 time through, now that you're at the point where you're adding the kick, I really want you to focus on getting those notes perfectly unison. That is your goal. So this is, again, meant to transition you to the drum set. So nothing has changed about the hands. We're just pulsing the kick. And that's all we have for this one. So again, very simple. We are going to have 3 speeds for this: 80, 100, and 120. Happy practicing and good luck. this far in the lesson, honestly, this is where the fun really begins, and you're able to take all of that hard work you have done practicing the single stroke 4 on the snare drum and apply it to the drum set, which for most of us is ultimately what we really want to be able to do. Take these rudiments and actually do something creative with them. So for these next 2 lessons, I'm going to show you how to use the single stroke 4 in 1 beat and in 3 fills. And we're going to break this lesson up into 3 parts. 1, we're just going to talk about the general application of the single stroke 4 to the drum set. We're going to do a little beat breakdown. I'm going to talk about this specific beat and how we use it. And then we're going to talk about the music. All right, talking about the music first. So all of these applications, this beat and the fill for the single stroke 4 are meant for primarily beginner drummers and are supposed to be simple, easy to memorize. That's really key, in particular if you're trying to use this along with music, and really to give you ways to understand what is seemingly a very dry snare drum exercise can actually add a lot of flavor on the drum set. So as always, let's take a listen first. This is our first beat, really our only beat, and we're going to listen at 80 and then 100. Here we go. Here's 100. All right, let's do the beat breakdown. And I hope that even just by listening to this, you see how such a little lick like this single stroke 4 can really sound great on the drum set. And I know that when you're listening to me play this here, I'm repeating this exercise over and over and over. And again, I'm doing that because these videos are intended to be practice videos. I want you to be able to play along with this and use this as your practice session, just as if we were in a live lesson together and sitting next to each other. We'd practice it like this. But know that, again, little bits of flavor are not meant to be repeated over and over and over again. I mean, you certainly could do that, but the intention here is to show you how this piece right here can get added in here and there. So most of the time, you probably would not repeat this in a song over and over and over again. So before we break down this beat, let's just talk about the rhythm really quick, because you'll notice that this rhythm looks slightly different. Let's go back to this exercise here. So this is the single stroke 4 with the kick. And you'll notice here that we're using 8th note triplets and a quarter notes. But when we get to this exercise here, we're using 16th note triplets and an 8th note. Now, even though this looks different, these are 2 sides of the same coin. They both represent the same thing. Essentially, it's a triplet at 1 speed, and then it's a single note at half that speed right after it. So the same way you could represent 1/2 as 1/2 or 2/4, we can represent this single stroke 4 very similarly. In this case, we're using a 16th note triplet and an 8th note, versus here where we're using 8th note triplets and a quarter note. So just know, even though it looks a little different, it's really the same thing. What's silly is that Sibelius, when it does the playback, really doesn't like 16th note triplets. It skips the middle one. I don't know why. I'm sorry about that. It's just the way that it is. But again, just listen along. You'll hear it. All the rest of the playback with this bar will work just fine. So let's break down this beat a little bit. I'm assuming you coming into this that you already know how to play a simple rock beat, which is really the first half of this measure right here. And a simple rock beat is just straight 8th notes with a kick on 1 and 3 and a snare on 2 and 4. So I'm not going to dive deep there. There are 1,000 lessons on an eighth note rock beat. That's what we're utilizing. And for really all of these beats throughout our rudiment courses, we're using this simple rock beat, not because it's the only thing that you can utilize these rudiments with, but because it's likely something you're familiar with. So when I'm adding something that you're unfamiliar with, like this, I want to pair it with something you are familiar with. So it makes it a little easier to bridge that gap. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, which is this last half right here, which is where we add in the single stroke 4. For our first exercise, we're actually just going to isolate it, just only the single stroke 4. And I want you to take a listen to that really quick. I'm going to play it really slow at 60 here. It'll sound a little funny, but that's intentional because I really want you to be able to just practice the motions. Let's listen first. Okay, especially at that speed, I hope that this looks and feels more manageable for you. And we're going to break down just this single stroke 4 part here into 4 steps. Step 1, we're going to bring the left hand up to the hi-hat, right? So you'll notice, let's go here. This will be a little bit of an easier way to see it. As I'm playing through this rock beat, you'll see that I'm going to bring that left hand up right there, right? So after I play these last 2 notes, I play this snare note with my left hand. All right, so snare note with the left hand, boom, right there, right? Now the left hand comes up. See how that left hand comes up? That's step 1. Step 1 is you need to bring your left hand up to be ready to play this single stroke 4 on the hi-hat. All right, step 1. Step 2, you're going to play the single stroke 4 on the hi-hat. Boom, 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 right? Those are the 4 hits right there. Play the single stroke 4 on the hi-hat. That's step 2. Step 3, you're going to bring your right hand down to the snare drum to play this snare drum on beat 4. So right hand, you can already see my right hand after I played that single stroke 4 is transitioning down to this snare drum to play that beat 4. And boom, beat 4 right there. And then finally, I have to reset for step 4. I'm going to bring my left hand to the snare and my right hand to the hi-hat. I'm going to get back into that crossed position. Boom. Now I'm here, back into that crossed position. Let's review that one more time from the top. We'll back up a little bit. Okay. Step 1. I've just played this snare note here. I'm going to bring my left hand up to the hi-hat. Left hand is here and ready. Step 2, I'm going to play the single stroke 4. I've just hit that 4th note. Step 3, I'm going to bring down my right hand to the snare on 4 to play that snare note. Boom, hit that snare on 4. Step 4, I'm going to bring both of my hands back into this crossed position to reset myself for the beat. All right, let's listen to that one more time. We'll listen to it isolated first. Let's listen to it in context now, in full context. All right, so how should you practice this? First, you should start with the isolated version of this. The reason I say that is because I really want you to nail all of the transitions I just talked about. Bringing your left hand up, playing the single stroke 4, bringing your right hand down to the snare on 4, and resetting. I just want you to be able to practice that all on its own. Then, when you feel comfortable with that, playing the full beat. So that's really the breakdown of this beat. So let's talk a little bit now about music, the music portion of this. As you can tell already, we have added in these backing tracks for you to play along with, because in my mind, at least, it's really different to play along to music than it is to just hear a drum beat isolated. One is not necessarily better than the other, but it's very different. So in my mind, again, it really makes sense to be able to hear these in a musical context so that you can know how you would use it in a musical context on your own. Good luck and happy practicing. Hey, welcome back to the final lesson of this single stroke 4 series. In this lesson, we're going to go over 3 different fills. Before I say anything else, let's just listen. Here we go, fill 1. All right, nothing too crazy. Let's listen to fill 2 here. Now, even though these are kind of fast, are you seeing a pattern? Fill 3. Okay, for this lesson, just like the last one, we're going to talk a little bit about this specific application, and then we'll do a fill breakdown. So this application is actually very, very easy. It's 3 beats of your basic rock beat, and on the 4th beat, your single stroke 4. That's it. And on all of these fills, we've utilized that same structure, but just moved around where the single stroke 4 sits. So since we're here, we'll start on fill 3. We'll go backwards. Fill 3. So let's go back to the top here. For fill 1, we do our single stroke 4 all on the snare. For fill 2, we expand it slightly by going from the snare to the floor tom. So you're still starting on the snare, you're just ending on the floor tom. And then for fill 3, we're taking the ending of our previous fill, ending on the floor tom, and just changing where we start, starting on the mid tom. So going from mid tom to floor tom. So as you can see, really for all of these, it's the same thing. 3 beats of a rock beat, 1 beat of a fill. That's it. All right, little bit of a fill breakdown here now. So when it comes to the motion on all of these, the right hand, I'm just about to play my last right hand, that right there on the hi-hat, this note right here. The right hand is going to come down to the snare drum or to the tom. Either way, the right hand is going to come off the hi-hat. It's probably a better way of saying it. And is going to go into the fill for all of these. So again, even though it changes where it might start or end, you're going to ultimately be coming off this hi-hat and be moving to either the snare or the tom, right? Pulling that right hand off. At the end of all these fills, you will be leaving wherever you are and taking that right hand and traveling it back to this hi-hat. And that's a super important part, because that motion to travel yourself back is what's going to allow you to hit this downbeat here. Let's see that transition. Boom, on beat 1, right? So particularly for the latter 2 fills, for fill 2 and 3, where we go down to this floor tom, there's a lot of distance to travel. So you'll notice that after I play these last 2 notes, boom, boom, as this left hand is coming down, my right hand is already traveling back. I'm already getting ready to get right back into that position, because I want to make sure that this downbeat is super clean. I want it to be on time, and I don't want it to feel rushed. I want this hi-hat and this snare to just be nicely synced in unison on beat 1. So really, that's it. Let's review from the top here. Our beat is comprised of 3 beats of a rock beat, and on the 4th beat, playing a single stroke 4. For our first one, we're playing the entire single stroke 4 on the snare drum. For our second one, we're playing the first 2 notes on the snare and then moving to the floor tom. For our third one, we're playing our first 2 notes on really either rack tom, doesn't matter, and then moving to a floor tom. That's it. For all of these, we are ultimately going to have to transition from the hi-hat to another drum, whether it's the snare drum or one of these toms. So we're going to have to pull that right hand off. Boom, just like that. And then when we finish, especially when we finish over here on the floor tom, we've got to make sure that this right hand is traveling as quickly as it can from this floor tom over to the hi-hat, because really that's one of the biggest transitions you have to make on the drum set. You're going from the far right side to the far left side, and we want that to feel smooth. So just like all of these other videos, I want you to use these fill videos as your practice videos. Play them at each speed and move through each fill. With that said, that's the end of the course. So I just want to take a moment to thank you so much for taking the time to learn with us. I know how hard it is to take time out of your day to do something like this, and I hope it was really rewarding for you. I also hope in particular you've taken away 2 things from this course. One is that practicing is what gets you results, and you should do everything you can to get yourself more hands-on time. So use these beats and fills to add more flavor to your playing on the drum set. The second thing is that I hope that you have found that rudiments really aren't as complex as they often seem, and really simple drum set applications like this can add a huge amount of flavor to your playing. I hope that you have learned something from this course. We have these courses for all 40 rudiments. My name is Lane Parsons, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.